Elizabeth Berkley's name became impossible to ignore after Showgirls. Whether people thought the movie was brilliant, ridiculous, or outright terrible, everyone was talking about her. At the time, that kind of attention was supposed to mean success. Instead, it nearly destroyed her life. In 1995, Elizabeth Berkley was only 22 years old. She believed that Showgirls would turn her into a serious movie star and finally help her break free from her wholesome Saved by the Bell image. What happened was the opposite. The film was savaged by critics, mocked by audiences, and turned into a cultural punchline almost overnight. One scene in particular, the infamous pool sequence, became a symbol of excess and embarrassment. The narrative quickly hardened. Elizabeth Berkley had ruined her own career. Studios labeled her box office poison. Her agent dropped her, and Hollywood shut its doors on her for nearly a decade. Elizabeth Berkley was born on July 28, 1972, in Farmington Hills, Michigan. From a young age, she stood out. She had sectoral heterochromia, a rare condition where one eye is split into two colors. One of her eyes was green while the other was half green and half brown. People found it unusual and photographers found it striking. But her early life was otherwise quiet and structured. She grew up in a Jewish household with her father Fred, a lawyer, her mother Jera, who ran a gift basket business from home, and her older brother Jason. She celebrated her bat mitzvah at a local synagogue and lived a fairly typical suburban life. Her parents enrolled her in dance lessons when she was just 4 years old, far earlier than many people realized. This was not a casual hobby. Elizabeth trained intensely in jazz, tap, and ballet, studying under respected instructors in Detroit. Her parents even converted part of their basement into a full dance studio, so she could practice daily. While other kids played, she danced for hours. That dedication paid off when she performed Swan Lake with the American Ballet Theatre and spent 5 consecutive years touring with the New York City Ballet's Nutcracker. At the same time, the pressure of constant evaluation left its mark. She learned early that perfection was expected, and that her body and performance were always being judged. As she grew older, acting began to pull her attention away from dance. She appeared in community theater productions and discovered that performing dialogue on stage gave her a different kind of thrill. During a recital where she performed, "Hey, look me over," something clicked. She realized she wanted to act. While still attending North Farmington High School, she began navigating the local theater and talent scene, which was filled with agents and scouts. Some of the attention was uncomfortable, and her parents, not fully grasping how predatory the industry could be, sent her to Los Angeles during school breaks to study acting. By her early teens, Elizabeth was training at Young Actors Space and competing in major modeling contests. At just 13, she reached the finals of Elite Model Management's Look of the Year competition. At the time, Elite was considered prestigious, but years later, the agency would be exposed for widespread abuse. Multiple models accused its leadership of sexual assault and exploitation. Elizabeth was young and vulnerable in an environment where such behavior was an open secret, though strict chaperoning by her parents likely shielded her from the worst of it. In 1988, when she was 16, her family moved permanently to Los Angeles. This decision changed everything. Elizabeth began booking television roles on shows like Silver Spoons and Give Me a Break. She was still a teenager, but she was working alongside seasoned professionals in an industry that rarely slowed down to protect young actors. In 1989, she auditioned for Saved by the Bell, hoping to land the role of Kelly Kapowski. She lost that part, but producers were so impressed that they created a new character specifically for her, Jessie Spano. The show quickly became a cultural phenomenon, and Elizabeth was suddenly one of the most recognizable faces on television. Her performance in the episode dealing with caffeine pill addiction, which featured her emotional breakdown, became iconic. Millions watched and the scene entered pop culture history. Behind the scenes, Elizabeth clashed with writers over dialogue and storylines, pushing for more serious topics and stronger female representation. By 1991, she renegotiated her contract and earned significantly more money, but her activism made network executives uneasy. At 20, she decided to leave Saved by the Bell, hoping to transition into adult roles. The media response was unforgiving. Tabloids focused on her appearance, her body, and her attempts to shed her teen image. Rumors circulated, fueled in part by former co-stars and gossip columns, and those whispers followed her into casting rooms. When she accepted the lead role in Showgirls, she believed she was taking control of her narrative. She was paid just $100,000 for the role, a fraction of the film's $45 million budget. Other actresses had turned it down, unwilling to commit to the level of nudity and intensity required. Elizabeth committed fully. She researched strip clubs, spoke to dancers, and immersed herself in the character. Despite warnings from her agent that the role could end her career, she went forward. The shoot was grueling. The pool scene alone took hours upon hours, with endless retakes that left her exhausted, bruised, and cold. She trusted the director and believed his vision, unaware that he was crafting a satire she didn't fully understand. When the film premiered, audiences laughed instead of empathized. Critics attacked her performance mercilessly. The movie swept the Razzie Awards, and Elizabeth personally received Worst Actress and Worst New Star. Worse than the awards was what followed. Her agent dropped her within weeks of the film's release. Studios stopped returning her calls. She became the industry's scapegoat. She even attended the Razzie ceremony in person, attempting to show resilience, but the media turned the moment into further humiliation. Behind the scenes, she was devastated, isolated, and struggling mentally and physically. For years, she was offered only roles that mocked her past or reinforced stereotypes. Directors openly admitted casting her as commentary on her downfall. She retreated into voice work and small projects just to survive. She lost weight, stopped going outside, and endured relentless tabloid cruelty. At her lowest point, even friends urged her to seek therapy, worried about her well-being. Slowly, she began rebuilding. Television roles in the late 2000s allowed her to show restraint and emotional depth. On CSI Miami, she finally reclaimed some control over her image, refusing to let the show reference her past in a degrading way. Audiences responded positively, and for the first time in years, she felt respected as an actress. Outside of acting, she found stability in her personal life. She married artist Greg Lauren, who supported her emotionally and financially during her darkest years. Motherhood further reshaped her priorities and led her to advocacy work focused on self-esteem, mental health, and protecting young women in entertainment. Decades after Showgirls, the narrative shifted. The film became a cult classic, embraced for its excess and misunderstood satire. Streaming residuals brought Elizabeth significant financial compensation,